with Talat Farooq Hawan
on BBC Radio Manchester and BBC Radio Lancashire.
Now, this week, June the 9th, was the death anniversary of Indian artist MF Husain, and his final piece of work was unveiled by the Qatar Foundation. MF Husain has been called the Picasso of India by Forbes magazine. He's known for his brightly coloured paintings, often depicting horses, landscape, and nude Hindu goddesses. He lived in exile in Qatar after the Indian government filed a lawsuit against him for the defamation of Hindu culture. Well, let's speak to Indian journalist Sahar Zaman, who's a stalwart when it comes to keeping the arts alive in the media, but has more on the latest offering in Qatar called Sero Fi Al-Ard. Welcome to the programme, Sahar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and good evening to all our viewers.
So, first of all, MF Husain was a big deal in India and indeed across the world. But tell us a little bit more about this individual that you've been following.
Here's an individual that needs more than a lifetime to follow, because he died at the age of 96, and he was active right till the end. I met Husain when in my early years of journalism, and right up to the end till he passed away. But I was in my early 20s, and he was already 60 years my junior, my senior, I beg your pardon, in the 80s, right. and had already lived an entire lifetime of establishing himself as the undoubted leader of Indian modern art, and the role that he's played in taking Indian modern art abroad in a new language. He was part of the progressive artist group, which was formed soon after independence in India. And it was formed with fellow artists such as Souza, Raza, Hussain was part of it, Tayyab Mehta was part of it. They were all our masters of Indian modern art. And the progressive artist group, soon after independence, in 1947 itself, or 1948, was formed to give a new language to Indian art, to move away from Mughal art, to move away from the company school art, to move away from anything that was known earlier about India. So it was to give a language to modern Indian art post-independence. And that's what they did, and that's what Hussain did most strongly in taking that language and modernizing the style of Indian art and taking it across the world and establishing it as a new style to reckon with from India. And he did that right till the end, experimented with everything and anything, and ended with really the final hurrah as his final work, which was completed posthumously by the Qatar Foundation, which is a magnificent multimedia performance installation. So pretty grand. I mean, ending with such grandeur as well. It's very phenomenal.
And I'm sure lots of people are quite curious of why he ended up in Qatar. So tell us a little bit about some of the issues he had, because he was forced into exile in 2006 due to several lawsuits. What impact did that have on the artist and indeed his creativity at that time?
Well, it had an impact to the extent that he felt that he has to leave because it was getting too much. Let's also understand that a lot of the paintings that were dug out and reintroduced into the public forum with very politically motivated intentions. I mean, these were paintings that he'd done in the 1970s. They were very popular, they were sold, they were auctioned, they traveled across. These were paintings that he did in the 90s as well. So these were collections that came out from 70s and 90s, wherein which there was no problem when they were painted at that time. But they were reintroduced in a very politically motivated manner by the right wing, who decided and felt that these are works that have hurt religious sentiments. And this is the movement that they have to drive against a Muslim artist who has, quote unquote, disrespected Hinduism. And if you speak to a larger set of people, they didn't feel that. It was very clearly a politically motivated case for the right wing to establish. And there were cases filed against him across the country, in different courts across the country. There were summons in different courts across the country. So his legal team had to bring all those cases to the center. And but it just grew in intensity. The protests, the legal cases against him, the petitions that were filed in court. But it's also important to note here that the Supreme Court in 2008 had cleared him of all charges of hurting Hindu sentiments. His name was cleared from that allegation, and yet despite that, he couldn't come back because there were at least an average of 3,000 cases filed against him across the country. A lot of these protests were very violent in nature, attacking his paintings here in India, burning his effigies, giving out death threats, price on his head. It was extremely violent, and obviously he felt threatened about his own safety. I think he was 93 years old when he decided that he needs some peace of mind because he wants to continue creating works of art, and he did so in deciding on a self-imposed exile. In earlier going to Dubai and London, shuttling between two homes in Dubai and London, and finally settling in Qatar as an honorary citizenship offer that he was given. To be in Qatar and complete projects that were commissioned by the Sheikh Hamodza, who was at that time a Royal Highness of Qatar.
And, in terms of his work, as I described at the beginning, very colourful pieces, and, he's been likened to Picasso. He had a very distinct style. Mm-hmm. For those who are quite curious about his work, how much would one piece of his work fetch nowadays?
But he is one of the most dependable. He's had a few records of works selling for crores. It'll take me a while to dig out the latest record-breaking sale of Husain. But he has been one of the record-holding artists for paintings that have sold for crores of rupees.
Yeah, I can imagine, absolutely. Now, he was eventually laid to rest in the UK, in one of London's biggest cemeteries. That's Brookwood Cemetery in Surrey. Also well known for lots of World War I soldiers being buried there. Uh-huh. Muslim soldiers also buried there. It's a great history. Does he have children? Did he have children?
Yes, many actually, and one of his children, who's a filmmaker, one of his sons, who's very closely involved with, is also based in Dubai right now, and was very closely involved with the completion of the latest project in Doha.
And have they continued? So clearly he's continued with some of his work, but are they artists within their own right as well? Do you know?
Well, one of his other sons, who was Shamshad, he was an acquaintance and friend as well. He was an artist, but he had a very different style. He has passed away as well. But he was the only son who took up visual arts. There are other members of his family who've taken up filmmaking. But Shamshad was someone who had taken up visual arts just like his dad, but with a very different style and with a very different mood to his work. You were asking about the market value. There was just one that sold last year at an auction, was for 18.47 crore rupees, and that was record breaking as well. So right. Yes, he's one of the most dependable in terms of market value.
Well, that's clearly a lot of money there, indeed, for his work. Mm-hmm. But so, how is he viewed now in India, or how is his work viewed now? Have things calmed down in that sense?
Not really, because the right wing that spearheaded protests against him is very much part of the establishment in the government which is in power today. And even for his 10th anniversary celebrations, it's been very muted. In fact, very shamefully so. Even all the Indian contemporary art galleries, which Husain helped establish and who have earned crores and crores of rupees from Husain paintings down the years, were very mute in marking his 10th anniversary. I mean, it was just about a picture shared on social media. There were, I mean, of course, we're also facing COVID-19 restrictions, but there weren't any online celebrations as well. I mean, at this point, I would say Qatar Foundation has done much more in releasing this work, final work of his, and completing it posthumously and releasing it as his last and final work. So they're doing more than what we should be doing in India.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? And I must say, it's a lovely title as well, isn't it? It's Siru fi al-Ard, which is in Arabic and translates as travel through the earth and observe how he began creation. It's a verse from the Quran. Very nice.
Yes, and I remember when I met him last, which was also interestingly his last recorded interview that I'd done when I was making this news piece on him for CNN India. I'd met him at his Dubai home in 2009. And he had spoken to me about it. It was in the very initial stages, and he was doing his research. He was working on a series on the Arab Revolution, and this, in fact, is connected to that. So it's about tracking the evolution of the civilization of the Arabs in that given region. So, which is why we have horses and we have galloping horses made of Murano glasses. And then we have fast cars, vintage cars spinning about, I mean, effectively indicating the progress that this certain race has made in the region.
Right. Well, it looks beautiful in some of the pictures I've seen, but Sahar, you know, you're keeping the arts alive and certainly keeping some of the voices and names that can sometimes get lost over time, but you're keeping them alive through the work and your journalism. So we thank you for that, and we thank you for your time you've taken out to speak to us tonight as well.
Always a pleasure, Talat. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, and hopefully we will catch up with you in the near future as well.
Okay.
All right.
Indus with Talat Farooq Hawan
on BBC Radio Manchester and BBC Radio Lancashire.